Welcome back to school. So we all had yesterday off. Does anybody know why we had yesterday off? Raise your hand if you can tell me why. Abby, why? I just did.
Martin Luther King Day.
It was Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday. So we decided that this week we were going to talk all about Martin Luther King Jr. Okay? All right. So, just like any story, before we get into the story, we're going to go over some vocabulary words. Okay, Miss Turnage?
Remember, we're sitting up straight, getting that energy flowing.
All right. The first word is freedom. Say freedom.
Trayvon.
Freedom
Take the head
is
off.
just the power to do whatever you want. Think about when we went outside for recess. You had the freedom to play whatever you wanted to outside on the playground, right? Okay, good. That's freedom. Let's turn it. Equality. Say equality.
Equality.
Equality is just having the same rights. Okay? We'll learn that when Martin Luther King Jr. was young, he didn't have the same rights because he was African American as the white people did. Okay? They did not share the same rights. However, that's changed, thank goodness, for the better. So that's equality. Okay, protest. Say protest. To show that you don't approve of something at a public event. Okay, that's what it means to protest. Sometimes we've seen people near the White House protesting something the president has decided on. People stand out there and they might say chants or hold posters, but they're just letting people know that they do not agree or they do not approve of something in a public event. Okay? Peace. Say peace. When there's no war or fighting. We all are pretty good on peace, aren't we? We know what peace means. Good job. Leader. Say leader. Someone who guides other people or someone who guides a group. Miss Stuber's the leader for reading. Okay? Miss Turnage is the leader for math. Okay, we lead the group. March. Say march. A march is when you walk with a large group of people in support of something. Miss Turnage and I, a few years ago, went to Raleigh with a whole bunch of other teachers from North Carolina, and we marched in protest of teachers' rights and students. Okay, so we all got together and we peacefully walked down a street to the governor's mansion. Yeah. So we were in a march. Okay, and we had posters and we said chants. Okay. All right. So each day this week, we're actually going to read a different story about Martin Luther King Jr. There's lots of stories. If you get time, go ahead and go to Get Epic, and they have stories on Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, but this story is called A Picture Book of Martin Luther King Jr. Okay, we're going to listen to this being read on YouTube. Okay, is everybody ready?
And is this the story they're going to be tested on?
Yes.
Okay, so this is
Well, they're tested on all of it.
Oh, at
It's
the end,
facts of
it's
Martin Luther King.
Okay, gotcha. Make sure to pin us.
A Picture Book of Martin Luther King Jr. A Picture Book of Martin Luther King Jr. by David A. Adler, illustrated by Robert Casilla. Martin Luther King Jr. was one of America's great leaders. He was a powerful speaker, and he spoke out against laws which kept black people out of many schools and jobs. He led protests and marches demanding fair laws for all people. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. Martin's father was a pastor. His mother had been a teacher. Martin had an older sister, Willie Christine, and a younger brother, Alfred Daniel. Young Martin liked to play baseball, football, and basketball. He liked to ride his bicycle and to sing. He often sang in his father's church. Young Martin played in his backyard with his friends. One day, he was told that two of his friends could no longer play with him because they were white and he was black. Martin cried. He didn't understand why the color of his skin should matter to anyone. Martin's mother told him that many years ago, black people were brought in chains to America and sold as slaves. She told him that long before Martin was born, the slaves had been set free. However, there were still people who did not treat black people fairly. In Atlanta, where Martin lived, and elsewhere in the United States, there were white-only signs. Black people were not allowed in some parks, pools, hotels, restaurants, and even schools. Blacks were kept out of many jobs. Martin learned to read at home before he was old enough to start school. All through his childhood, he read books about black leaders. Martin was a good student. He finished high school 2 years early and was just 15 when he entered Morehouse College in Atlanta. At college, Martin decided to become a minister. After Martin was graduated from Morehouse, he studied for a doctorate at Boston University. While he was there, he met Coretta Scott. She was studying music. They fell in love and married. In 1954, Martin Luther King Jr. began his first job as a pastor in Montgomery, Alabama. The next year, Rosa Parks, a black woman, was arrested in Montgomery for sitting in the white-only section of a bus. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. led a protest. Blacks throughout the city refused to ride the buses. Dr. King said, "There comes a time when people get tired of being kicked about." One night, while Dr. King was at a meeting, someone threw a bomb into his house. Martin's followers were angry. They wanted to fight. Martin told them to go home peacefully. "We must love our white brothers," he said. "We must meet hate with love." The bus protest lasted almost a year. When it ended, there were no more white-only sections on buses. Dr. King decided to move back to Atlanta in 1960. There, he continued to lead peaceful protests against white-only waiting rooms, lunch counters, and restrooms. He led many marches for freedom. In 1963, Dr. King led the biggest march of all, the March on Washington. More than 200,000 black and white people followed him. "I have a dream," he said in his speech. "I have a dream that my 4 children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." The next year, in 1964, Dr. King was awarded one of the greatest honors any man can win, the Nobel Peace Prize. The country was changing. New laws were passed. Blacks could go to the same schools as whites. They could go to the same stores, restaurants, and hotels. White-only signs were against the law. Dr. King told his followers to protest peacefully, but there were some riots and some violence. Then, in April 1968, Dr. King went to Memphis, Tennessee. He planned to march so black and white garbage workers would get the same pay for the same work. On April 4th in Memphis, Dr. King stood outside his motel room. Another man, James Earl Ray, was hiding nearby. He pointed a rifle at Dr. King. He fired the gun. An hour later, Dr. King was dead. Martin Luther King Jr. dreamed of a world free of hate, prejudice, and violence. Carved on the stone which marks his grave are the words, "I'm free at last." The end.
Okay. So, what was something that we learned about Dr. King? Where was he born? Matthew? Where was he born?
He was born in Alabama.
Was it Alabama? Where was it?
Atlanta, Georgia.
Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, and did he have any brothers or sisters, or was he an only child?
He had a brother and sister.
Yeah, he had a brother and a sister. Okay, what was his dad's job? What did his dad do? Somebody online, Ben, what did his dad do? You remember? What was his dad's job? You don't remember? How about Lillian? Do you remember? She can't talk. How about Liam? Do you remember what was his dad's job? Anybody online remember? Are y'all still sleeping? Paisley, do you remember? Jacob? He was a preacher or a pastor of a church. And that was very influential on Dr. Martin Luther King. As he grew up, he decided to be what as an adult? What did he decide to be as an adult? Layla, what did he decide to be as an adult?
Matthew.
A preacher. He decided to be a preacher. Okay? And what did he dedicate his life to? What was he trying to do? Abby?
To give peace and freedom to the world.
He did. He believed in peace and freedom for the world. What do you mean by peace and freedom?
Everyone had the same, went to the same stores, hotels,
Yes.
schools, and things like that.
Okay. Yes, when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a child, okay, he wasn't allowed to come to school with white children. Okay? If you lived in his time, you wouldn't be sitting, black and white children would not be sitting together. You would not share the same bathrooms. You would not ride the same bus. You would not be in the same classroom or even school. They had separate schools. And Martin Luther King Jr. thought that this was very unfair. Very unfair, okay? And so he fought did he fight? No, he actually led peaceful protests. He led a campaign trying to get equal rights for everyone. Okay? Let's see. You've got a couple of assignments today. This slideshow is in your Google Classroom. So if you'd like to listen to that story again, there's a link that will take you to that story. Okay? But you've got a couple of assignments to do today. The first one is to read the definitions for freedom and peace. Okay? Freedom is the power to do what you want. Okay? You're going to think about that. The power to do what you want. What does that mean to you? Okay? And peace, where there's no war or fighting. How can we have peace in our country, in our world? Okay, I want you to think about that. And part of your assignment today is to jot that down. You can do that in your reading journal, or you can do that online on the slide. You each have your own slide. But once you've done that, Miss Stuber actually created a Padlet. Do you remember Padlets? Anybody remember Padlet?
No.
Okay. Did you click? Good. Miss Turnage is on it.
I'm getting it.
Okay. So here's a Martin Luther King Jr. Padlet that I created. What does freedom and peace mean to me? Okay. And you're going to, I did columns this time for Miss Duber's class, Miss Turnage's class, Miss Harris's class, and Miss Best's class. Okay, so you're going to click on the plus, whoever in your classroom, and you're going to create a sticky note. Okay, and on your sticky note, you're going to answer those two questions. First, you're going to tell us, what does freedom mean to you? It doesn't have to be a whole book. Okay, you can write as much as you want or as little. However, it needs to be in a complete sentence. Okay, meaning if you are 7 years old, how many words should you have in your sentence? 7. If you're 8 years old, how many words should you have? At least 8. You can have more than that, but try not to have any less than that. Okay, your sentences should begin with what?
Capital letter.
And what should be at the end?
Punctuation.
A punctuation mark. And the other thing that we don't talk a lot about is the word order. The order of the words. It has to make sense. Because if you just write a bunch of words down and it doesn't make sense to the reader, that is not a complete sentence. Okay? And you can work on restating the question. So the first question is, what does freedom mean to you? How could you restate that question?
Freedom means to me because
Well, she restated the question. She's going to need to think about that a little bit. Okay? She'll probably need to think about that a little bit. But she said, freedom means to me. Could you change the word order of that around and could you say, to me, freedom means, or Miss Turnage had just put up here, freedom means, could you use any of that? Sure. Okay? So you're going to write what freedom means to you, and then think about peace. Okay? Our world is not at peace. We have other countries that are very unhappy with us in the United States. So think about, and we just had the presidential elections, correct? I'm
Give me
sorry,
an example of what you think.
what I think freedom means to
I'm
me?
gonna write your sticky note.
Okay. Freedom means being able to make my own choices, to live my life the way I see fit.
Okay, and how can we have peace in our country and world?
I think we can have peace in our country and our world by learning how to be kind to each other, by practicing kindness. Okay? So often people, I don't know if you've ever been in the stores or anything, but people are rude. And, you know, sometimes a smile or a good morning or something like that can change someone's day. Sometimes doing something nice for someone can change somebody's day, can help them be happy. I don't know, that's just what I think. A smile can be contagious. Okay, when you smile at someone, what do they usually do back to you?
they smile back.
Yeah, they usually smile back, don't they? Now sometimes they might not, but usually they do. Okay, so Ms. Turnage, type this up for me.
Now what?
Make sure that you've got your name on your sticky note so we know who's writing that. Okay, then just click off it, Ms. Turnage.
Okay. I could put you and sign it. Because sometimes if you don't put your name, we won't know whose it is.
That's right, just click off it.
Okay?
Okay, so that created my sticky note. Now you can see where you can add a comment. I would like for you, and it doesn't matter whose class the person is in, but read some of your friends' comments, okay? And maybe leave a positive remark on someone else's sticky notes. Do you like what they said? What did you like about it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Okay? At least one other person's sticky note, you need to put a comment. And you should also put your name on the comment because you come up as what says anonymous. And when you're anonymous, we don't know who you are. Okay, when I log in, it's my Padlet, so my name shows up. But when you log in, it just says anonymous. So be sure to put your name on your sticky note and on your comment, just like Miss Turnage did. She said, I agree, Miss Stuber. Smiling makes me happy. Miss Turnage. Okay?
My name is not anonymous, right?
She's not anonymous. Okay? Does anyone have any questions about the Padlet assignment? Are you all good with that? Evie, do you have a question?
Like, change colors of your
Yes, if you remember how to change the color, you most definitely can change the color on your sticky note. Okay? Yes, Curtis.
What does it do?
Tomorrow, you need to work on it today. We'll be checking it by tomorrow. Abby?
Why did, in the video book, why did, years ago, why did black and white not like each other?
That goes way back into a time of,
Cavemen.
not cavemen. I was gonna say slavery. There was a time when white people actually, not just black people, they would take people and make them work for them. Not even just black people. They did that to the Indians. Okay. They do it to all kinds of people. But they thought that they were better than everybody else, and they made people work for them without pay. Okay, it's a time of slavery. And as time went on, slavery was abolished or done away with. And white people still didn't see black people as equals. Okay, they thought they were less than them. Not everybody, okay? But some people did. And so they would make them have separate water fountains. They'd make them have separate bathrooms. As the story talked